Hi, I'm Carla D. Tillery, and welcome to the Chair Chronicles. I'm your life coach and your favorite auntie. You know, that aunt that is so not afraid to tell you the truth and help you see things just a little clearer, and you love her advice. Well, as a certified life coach with over 2 decades of experience, I'm very passionate about helping you find your happiness. So pull up a chair and let's have a talk. LA, we've got a great question of the day.
All right, let me have it.
Okay, today it is, why aren't marriages lasting long? Why aren't marriages lasting long, like perhaps we've seen from our grandparents and our great-grandparents? Like, it seems to be different. And, you know we've seen a lot of reports over the years that talk about the divorce rate being high and being like over 50%.
Right.
And so I think it could be connected, but I do think there's some other fundamental things that are happening, that people are different than the way they were back in the day when it comes to relationships. It's a whole new ball game right now.
It's a whole new ball game. And again, I also think that when we think about like my parents, your parents, and our grandparents, and what marriages, meant, it definitely, the meaning and why people get married or don't decide to get married are a lot different. And like you said, society is just different. The way we handle things, the way we think about things.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
And is there value still placed on it? We let's just be clear. People sometimes watch what's happening in, celebrity world and seeing these things on a bigger scale,
right?
People's lives being played out in front of the camera. And so you kind of wonder where all this influence is coming from and how
exactly
internalize it. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I think, people weren't on display like they are now back in the day. And so I don't know if that's good or bad, because I think it can work for us and it can work against us. I sometimes just don't have an appetite for all of that, just to see everybody else's drama. Listen, I got enough on my own. I'm trying to clean up myself, clean up my area, my house. It's like, sweep around your door before you try to sweep around somebody else's.
That's right.
And so it's like, I just don't have time to kind of engage in a lot of that.
Right.
But I'm wondering if the new generation or if the generation under us is watching those things. And like you said, having such a great influence on how they treat relationships.
Right. And are they seeing it not just on that scale, but even around them? Is there value being placed on being married? Are they seeing what marriages look like? And maybe they are, and it's just saying, I don't want any part of that, or I don't need that, or they just haven't been around it. They haven't been exposed to it, whether they've come from a one-parent home or they had parents that divorced and they saw the ugliness of it or whatever. So it's just a lot of components.
A lot of components. And back in the day, so I know history tells us that a lot of marriages were arranged, right? So the parents would do the selection of, the gentleman to marry their daughter, and the families would talk and sometimes there were connections, whether it's trying to maintain a certain status, right? Or sometimes trying to get into a certain status. And if if the family had a dowry or if they had possessions, that enabled them to marry up, per se. So that they could maintain. Again, it was more like a status thing, and marriages were arranged. Now, of course, I came up in the era, look, I'm going to pick my own man. I don't need no help.
Exactly.
I might need some advice, but I don't need no help.
No, exactly.
Because I don't know who you're going to pick.
True.
So I know, that may still exist, but perhaps in certain cultures across the world, right? I don't hear too much of that at least in the States.
Right.
So, marriage certainly, I think, had a status back in the day, I think, for women to be able to say that they were married and had someone to take care of them and be the provider. And so I'm wondering, because that's not the era we're in right now.
Not at all.
And I'm wondering, does that contribute to the fact why either there's fewer marriages or marriages are not lasting long because of this sense of, men and women now kind of being seen as equals and they can do their own thing. They're independent. They got their own minds. And it's a little less than I need someone else versus I want someone else.
It is. I mean, and this is it. We don't like to say it's so deep, but it really is, because when we think about marriage, for those who, were brought up in the Christian faith or the Jewish faith or, Buddhism, or, there still is a sense that marriage is a ministry. And so there is value placed on it. Like you said, when we get beyond the, the dowry and the status of where you are. But when you think about it, women long ago weren't working outside of the home. And
That's
so
right.
A lot of it was getting married so that they could be taken care of. They can take care of the house and the children, but there was someone that provided for them. And now women are being able to do these things for themselves. So it's not about what you can do for me in terms of tangible things. It's what else is there, and like you said, there's a freedom that we have. And so, is it that people think about marriage or is it like, okay, that's just a piece of paper? Because I've heard people say, well, it's just a piece of paper. I can be with someone for 20 years and that's like a marriage, so why do I need this piece of paper?
Right.
It's
so
really
has marriage really infringed upon our freedom? And is that why people don't choose marriage?
I think it's all about the example that people, the examples that people see. I'm single, obviously. I was in a long-term relationship, and when we did things with couples, there were quite a few that were married at the time, and there were a few that I'm like, why are you married?
Yeah, I think everybody got some of those in this.
You two are living like single people, So, yeah. But I never allowed it to be that that's what defined marriage for me, because I also saw other experiences. My parents are 56 years in, so I've seen other examples, but it's hard. It's hard because how much of that does influence your thinking about, is marriage necessary?
Yeah, so I come from a family where my parents have been married for a very long time. They're still married. They've been together for 65 years and they've been married for 58.
Wow.
And when people see them, there are moments where they're still giggly and they still compliment each other. Right. And so they still get a lot of attention when they go out. And so, my dad, he's a bragger. So he loves to brag about how long they've been together.
I love it.
And, and then they'll start making jokes about, I've been with this joker. I've been with this one, Lord help me, that kind of stuff, Right. But I grew up seeing how they interrelated with each other in terms of being a married couple. And again, I didn't see, and I think I mentioned this before, I didn't see a lot of drama per se with my parents. I was fortunate, right? So I'm using that as my model. And then my husband, and he comes from a home, his mother has passed away now, but his mom and his dad were married for over 50 years. And so he had an upbringing of witnessing a very strong marriage. Right. And I will say this about my parents and his parents, they all strong-willed,
yes,
independent thinkers.
Right.
But they still made it work. And so it troubles me to see that we're losing some of that sort of examples. But I'm also fortunate that not only did I grow up seeing a strong marriage, but now my friends have strong marriages and I think really good marriages. Not to say that none of us don't go through stuff. Now I'm not trying to paint this rosy picture 24/7. But what I'm saying is that I'm fortunate to have other friends that are similar to me, that they have marriages for 20 plus years.
Right. And I'm excited about, being able to say that as well, that, I've been in enough weddings and coordinated coordinated quite a few. And I always talk to them about that. I said, you never painted this picture of this perfect marriage, but it's perfect for you guys. And watching them, have careers and raise children and still find time for one another, but also allowing each other to have that space to be who they are. And it just gives me, it refreshes me, and it gives me, not so much hope, but it blesses me, because I know that is the model that I'm looking for my own self when I'm putting it out in the atmosphere when I get married. Right. So, and I think that's important too, that we find and we embrace those that are in that place where we would love to be.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But I've heard that, sometimes women feel like that, it's difficult now, but it's based on the fact that they're not willing to accept certain things. They're not willing. And some would say, I ain't putting up with that crap that, mom and grandmama and all of them did. That's not me. I'm not having it. Right. If this is not happening, or if he's cheating on me, or, if he's not, earning a substantial amount of money now, I don't need it. I'm better off by myself. And right. So I don't know how much of kind of like the social media and just what we see out in the world influences sort of not our selection, but our criteria.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Because some women want, a 6-figure earning income from their potential mate. Mm-hmm. Now, I would say in the Black community, I get it, I understand, but where do you find it at? Look, let me know, because I got a lot of friends.
Let me know
who want to know where they are.
Right. But there's this, these expectations that, you want all of these things from this person, but what are you bringing to the table? Mm-hmm. And have we made it easy to walk away, like you said? What are those things what are those fundamental things that really make not just a relationship work, but it will have to be sustainable in a marriage? And so, like you said, I'm not putting up with it, I'm just going to walk away. So how willing are you to throw in the towel when you get into an argument about him not putting his clothes in the laundry basket? If that's the argument that you have every week, okay, you're fed up. So now that's just going to just ruin your ideal of him, and like, oh, well, he won't clean up, so I'm just not gonna be bothered with him anymore. Right. So it's like the petty things
exactly.
Yeah.
And so I remember watching Tyler Perry's Why Did I Get Married? And I don't know if it was the first one or the second one, but they talked about like that 80-20 rule.
Yes, the first one.
I will say, I think there is a lot of truth to that kind of principle. Is that we hone in on that 20% that ain't working. Whether it's where he puts the socks, or the toilet seat is still up, or, sometimes we get upset because they're working hard and they ain't home enough. Right. Or, they're too tired to give us the attention that we're looking for. And I'm not saying any of those things aren't, can't be real issues for some people, but I would say that it is very easy, and I think a natural human behavior, to not focus on the 80% that's working well. He's a hard worker. She's a hard worker. She cooks well. She takes care of the kids, but maybe she is not intimate enough. It works both ways, right? I think women can be very busy doing the things, but then not have the energy, not have the time to focus on him and his needs, and vice versa. The man could be doing certain things where he doesn't have the time. And so even in building that relationship, you're noticing the 20%. And a lot of times you get ruled out for marriage because of the 20%, not because of the 80%.
That's really interesting. That's really interesting. And it's something to make note of, because we focus on those little micro things that can ruin a relationship. And at the end of the day, it's like, it couldn't have been all about that, wanted other things. And this was just a catalyst to get, So again, coming from a place of singledom, I think for myself, it really is truly about knowing whether or not you want to be married. I think sometimes we have these expectations that it's expected that you get married. It's expected that you have children. It's expected. And that might not be for everyone. Right. So again, when we're looking at our mate and when we're meeting people and we're establishing relationships and you have to know if that is what you want. And if that person says to you, oh, I never really gave it any thought. Oh, I've been down that road. I'm not saying that I can get married, but I've been down that road already. You have to listen to what people are telling you. If they're saying it without saying it, right. I don't want to be married no more. Or if I've done it, I don't feel the need to do it. If that's what you want, then you have to be bold enough and stand in your truth and know that as much as you like this person, as much as you are seeing a future with them, if that's not what they want and that's what you want.
Yeah. And that's tough because I think sometimes I've seen a lot of people in relationships where their future is not on the same page.
Right.
So like you said, one may want to get married and another may not. And I would say it's also difficult sometimes when you hear people to understand, is it a result of a hurt or an issue in a previous relationship that you didn't feel like you can overcome? Is it not just worth the hassle? Or so do you really want to and you're just pushing it off? Or do you really have you really come to a place where you say, I'm comfortable with who I am, I'm comfortable being single, and I'm good? And I don't know if everybody is talking from a good place, as opposed to a place that just where they experience a lot of pain, betrayal, disappointment, perhaps abuse and other things in other relationships.
Right. Wow. It's difficult. This road, I'll say difficult in terms of being honest with ourselves. Like you said, these are all these things where you have to sit in your pain, sit in your truth, sit in your happiness, your joy about where you are, and decide and be honest. And it's okay. Everybody wasn't built to be married. It's okay. It's okay. Everybody wasn't built to have children. It's okay. It's better to know it, own it, and be okay with it than to forge ahead. And then, like you said, then we have those numbers that, we're at 50% of the divorce rate.
Right. But I would say, though, something you said earlier, like about, just resolving conflict, right? Mm-hmm. When you're in a relationship, that's one of the things you got to observe in terms of reactions to different situations. Mm-hmm. And you have to get to a point in a relationship where there is a conflict so that you can see how well equipped are you and this other person you're in a relationship with. How equipped are you to resolve conflict? Because it comes up. Right. I mean, any kind of relationship or if you're already married, it comes up. And how do you handle it? And I think, the tolerance of one's flaws is low. I feel like it's low right now because if people ask me, what's the secret ingredient? The first thing I say is forgiveness, because I know I'm not perfect. Right. And so if there were some things I did in my 20s, because I was young, perhaps still growing and maturing, I don't want nobody to hold against me my behavior in my 20s. I'm not that woman now.
Exactly.
Right. So I think whereas in my 20s I could have been fussing about the toilet seat and fussing about the socks on the floor. Exactly. I don't do that now. I don't do that now. I've learned that that's not that big of a deal. I just pick up the socks. Come on. Yeah. He's working, he's doing all these other things. I've learned how to look at, per se that 80%. So
exactly. But it's exciting to, like I said, watching you and in your marriage and seeing my brother-in-law, and how you guys operate. And again, like you said, it didn't happen overnight. You grew together, and it's exciting. And so, as much as we hear about the statistics, we are still seeing people that are committed and they want more than just, we're in a relationship. They want that true connection, whether people think it's just a piece of paper. Again, I believe it's ministry. I believe that it is a blessing to be in that place, And again, me being older, I have a more settled spirit about what marriage is and what it isn't. So I, like you said, I think it changes when you're in your 20s and you get married, and when you're in your 30s, when you're in your 40s, your 50s. It looks different. It
is different. Yeah. And I think, just listening to my parents, and I think what I do recall about my in-laws is that they spent a lot of time together before they got married. So my parents, again, they were together for 7 years before they got married. Right. My husband and I, we were together for 4 years before we got married. And I don't know if that's because I was younger, so you want to make sure you're making the right selection. Right. But I think what you said is very important. I think the older you get, you start to be you start to be who you are, because you've learned that over the years, that you're coming into yourself, and so you have more of a confidence and a certainty of who you are as you get older. So I think you don't have to date as long in your older years, because there's who you are, what you want, that sort of thing, and you can verbalize it. You can articulate those things about yourself a little more. So it's interesting, because I do think there is a difference depending on the age you are in your relationships, because it could be very telling about what you know about yourself during that time.
This is deep.
Yeah. So my sister is married. She got married a little later, I think in her 30s or 40s. But her and her husband didn't date as long, but they've been married for a very long time now. 15, almost, getting up there too. So it's like I said, I think I've seen some differences with the courtship period. Who says that?
We do.
We do. I do. Court me, baby.
That's it. Yeah.
Right. But I would say my kids, sometimes, we're talking about relationships and things like that. And they're looking at me and their dad as the example and saying, oh, this is too hard. You guys, no, I don't know how you guys doing it, because they just don't understand or seeing some of the things that they see in us in their generation.
Right. And again, that's that influence of, times have changed. The way we define relationships, what do we, the traditional relationship doesn't look the same anymore. Yes. And so you see all these other examples, and it just seems like it's kind of loosey-goosey. It's okay. And, but again, it's really individualized when you really think about what it is that you need and want in your life. So again, with all of the influences, you got to cut through the noise. And if it's truly what you want, whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, you have to seek those people out. You have to seek those examples out. What does a marriage look like? Are there people around me that are married? Talk to those people that have been, 60 years in. Talk to those people that are 20 years in. Even talk to that person that's five years in. I wouldn't say 2 or 3, because I've heard, you got to kind of get through the first couple of years, But seek those people out and just ask them,
yes,
what are you doing? How did you do this? How does it feel? And again, it's what you put into it. It's what you want. It has to be what you want and need in your life.
Yeah.
And if you don't, be honest, and don't stay with someone just because you really love them, you care about them, but that they're not going down the same path that you are. It's wasted time.
It is wasted time. Yeah.
Yes, I know. Wasted time.
Yeah. I think that is so important, that you're very clear what you want out of the relationship. Right. And sometimes you can start on the same page, but then things change. But if you find yourself changing and it's not lining up, say something. Be honest, right? Because otherwise, someone could be anticipating that this relationship is going somewhere, and then in your mind it's not.
Right. And you don't want to leave hurt feelings. You don't want to leave, even with yourself, you don't want to leave a pattern of indecision.
Right.
I'm not clear in my intentions, because we are accountable to one another. And when you're in a relationship, you should be held accountable. you want to take that person's feelings and their needs and wants into consideration, and you want the same in return. And when we're not honest with ourselves, we can't be honest with that other person. And what we do, we leave behind hurt, and that hurt gets carried into the next relationship. And that's not what we want. We want people to be happy, whether it's, I've always said it, if it's not me, let it be somebody else.
That's right. That's right.
I even have my love shirt on, love is love,
Yeah. Absolutely. And I would say to anyone, what you were saying was great, because, that's the same thing I said. Talk to other people, other couples, to find out if you're exploring, because everybody does things a little differently. It is so unique to the individuals at play, right? But I would say uniformly across the board, it's work. And all relationships, whether they're parental and your child, or whether it's your girlfriends, or whether it's your guy friend, all types of relationships require some level of work. And I would say with marriage, it requires a lot of work. And if you're not willing to put the work in, please, it's like you're gonna get fired. That's why the marriages aren't working. So people not willing to do the work. It takes time for two people to really kind of intertwine their lives and their mindsets and everything else that comes with it. So it is work, but there's so many people that enjoy their jobs, right? Yeah. So I think there are a lot of people that enjoy marriage and are willing to do what it takes because that's their desire. So
exactly.
It can work. I know there's some long-lasting marriages out there. That's right. And if that's something you're pursuing, then go for it and make it happen. And so your selection should be, you've got to be very careful.
Right.
That's number one. You got to start with the right person.
That's it. Get that checklist out.
Get it out and make sure you two are ready to do this thing for the long haul. And I know some couples get together and say, you know what, divorce is not an option for us. We just got to make it work. Right. Just got to make it work. So
I love it.
So
this is good.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much more we can dig into. So we'll do that on another episode, but we appreciate all of our viewers listening in. If you have any comments, please share them with us. Be sure to like this podcast. And as always, we love to hear from you. So stay tuned and stay connected on the Chair Chronicles.